Our guest on today's very special episode of War Docs is Major General Retired Dr. Mudhafar Habboush, a physician who served in the Iraqi military for nearly 4 decades before he and his family left Iraq in August of 2003.
Welcome to War Docs, the military medicine podcast. This show brings you a first-hand, behind-the-scenes look into the mission, unique opportunities, and deployed experiences of the entire military healthcare team. From state-of-the-art hospitals in the United States to the most austere environments across the globe, War Docs has you covered.
Welcome to War Docs. I'm Major General Retired Jeff Clark, and our guest on today's very special episode of War Docs is Major General Retired Dr. Mudhafar Habboush, a physician who served in the Iraqi military for nearly 4 decades before he and his family left Iraq in August of 2003. Dr. Habboush, today is your 90th birthday. Happy birthday to you. And you have a very special friend who joined your birthday celebration, Brigadier General Retired Dr. Rhonda Cornum. And Rhonda, you met Dr. Habboush in March of 1991 when you were then Major Rhonda Cornum, serving as a flight surgeon doing Operation Desert Storm. It's great to have you both on War Docs. And Rhonda, please introduce our guest and your friend, Dr. Habboush.
Thank you very much, Jeff. This is really an honor for me because I have to say when I met Dr. Habboush, I had been captured near Basra, Iraq. And about 4 days into that ordeal, I was delivered to Baghdad, to the hospital where he was both the commander and an orthopedic surgeon. I remember meeting him, and my first impression was how professional. In an immaculate green uniform with a white coat, it was just like walking into a ward at Walter Reed. Only there was no electricity because it had been taken out, so they were making rounds like kerosene lantern. But there was the staff, there was the resident, there was an intern, there was a nurse, and I felt very safe and very comfortable. At that time, I did not realize really quite how badly injured I was or how sick I was. But I was fortunate that I had been brought to see Dr. Habboush because there's no doubt he saved my life. And though I had multiple broken bones and a gunshot wound and was probably a little septic and a little shocky, they took the best care of me that I think was available in that country at that time. I remember thinking about the professionalism, particularly when I thought about being both professionally as a military member and as a physician. So although he was not going to give away any information that was militarily inappropriate, I remember him saying to me, I think you can get your definitive surgery done later. And I took that to mean you are going to get out of here and you'll get out in time to get your arms repaired and your leg repaired and your everything else repaired when you get back to the States. The other thing, again, not to give away information, but he said to me, that he had a brother in Philadelphia who was a surgeon. And I didn't have the name. I didn't know anything. But as I was leaving his hospital a couple days later to go get taken to another prison, they slipped something under my arm, and it was basically a narrative summary. And it had his name. And so when I got back to the States, I could look up his name, and I went to the yellow pages and found a Dr. Habboush in Philadelphia. And I called him from Walter Reed and said, I know you don't know me, but I just was a patient of your brother's. And there was silence on that phone because they hadn't heard from anybody in Iraq in a long time. And I said, yeah, I was his patient at the Baghdad hospital, and he's doing fine. And that was really the interaction that allowed us to hook up later and allowed me to invite Dr. Habboush to be part of the Air Command and Staff College program, and probably is how we are here today. And so it's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Mudhafar Habboush.
Rhonda, thank you. That was incredibly special and a fascinating story in of itself. But for you both, your experience and your friendship is exactly why we have War Docs, to capture the history and experience the legacy of military medicine. And for everyone, Dr. Cornum will be a guest on War Docs in the near future. Rhonda, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I just want to say one last thing. I really hope I was as good a doctor, both a doctor and a military officer, as he was.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right, we'll pause for a second, and Dr. Habboush, let you get your headphones on, and we'll go from there. Rhonda, that was excellent. That was very special. Thank you.
I'm even teary-eyed, and you know me well enough to know that never happens.
That doesn't happen very often. I'm getting teary-eyed. You know I get teary-eyed more often than you do, but I'm getting teary-eyed.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, geez Louise, that is so special. That is truly remarkable. Dr. Habboush, again, welcome to War Docs. You were born in Mosul, Iraq in 1934. You and your family moved to Baghdad when you were a child, and you completed your schooling there to include graduating from Baghdad University School of Medicine in 1960. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to join the military in Iraq?
Yes. Usually, when we graduate, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Defense take a number of candidates. I was taken as one of 10 military personnel to the Ministry of Defense, and the others go to the Ministry of Health, and it was a contract that we do with both ministries.
That's very similar to our system. I had a contract to go to medical school, and then I joined the military also. So your system and our system is very similar. You completed a general surgery residency in London and earned a degree from the Royal College of Surgeons, returned to Iraq, and your first assignment after your residency was at Al Walid Air Base in western Iraq, which is over near the Jordanian border. And then, as I understand it, when you got there, you were not satisfied. You thought the medical facility was inadequate, the system was inadequate. So tell us about your time at Al Walid and the changes you made there in your very first assignment to improve the care that you were able to provide.
When I left the United Kingdom, I had the status of a senior registrar in orthopedic surgery. And I worked with a consultant named John Wilkinson. He was a pediatric orthopedic surgeon. He asked me not to go back home many times, but I did. He said, anytime you want to come back, your place is vacant and you can join us anytime. So I left the United Kingdom back home to join my family and my country. And I thought I better go and say hello to the director of military medical services. He welcomed me, but he said, I want you to do me a favor. I said, what is it? He said, I want you to go and cover a place named Al Walid Air Base for 3 weeks because the surgeon has taken leave, and you replace him for that period. And then you come back to the Rashid Military Hospital, and this is your permanent job. So I said, okay, I'm prepared to do so. I went there. I found very primitive medical facilities. So I didn't do anything. I waited 3 weeks, waiting for the surgeon to come back, but it seemed that he fled away. He rightly fled away because there is no medical facility for a surgeon qualified with a fellowship from London. So I thought I better see the commander of the air base, whose name was Lieutenant Colonel Amr Jawdat al-Husseini. I met him and he said, what can I help you? I said, you can help me a lot. I want a building in this area. And he said, I am prepared to take you around and just pick up any building you want. So I picked up a building, named on it the resident engineer for the airbase. So he said, okay, this is yours. And come back, just tell me what you want next. I said, I want a transport means to bring equipment. So he gave me a huge helicopter, which was, I remember, it was Mi-8 or Mi-4. It was a Russian helicopter. I took it back to Baghdad, and I went to the director of military services, or the medical military services, and he agreed to give me all the requirements. So I brought back a complete hospital, 20 beds, anesthetic instruments, X-ray machines, and everything that's required for a small hospital. After I finished, the hospital was ready. I went to the commander. I said, I want patients. And he said, how can I bring you patients? I said, you collect me all the unarmed soldiers in the area, and I will select patients to do some work on them. Not only that, I asked him to provide me with a helicopter, to alter it, to make it an ambulance, air rescue helicopter. And then I asked him to give me permit to visit the civilian regional hospital so that I can pick some patients for surgery. So I did all these arrangements, and we started work in the hospital the first day. This is how we built up a hospital in a desert where there is an important base, jets, and other important helicopters. And in the region, there was affiliated military personnel. So about 5,000 or 6,000 personnel in the region. So I was happy to start work there, and I had about 2 theater lists a week, and I spent 3 weeks there, and I go on leave to see my family after 3 weeks for a few days, and so on, back and forth. And I was happy to do so. And this was really a sacrifice, where my book, I said, service, sacrifice. This is one of my sacrifices, which I left the United Kingdom, a great place I worked with. I did a sacrifice to come back home and do work to my country.
Thank you for that. Your devotion to your patients and to your country, and your ingenuity and innovation to create a relationship with the civilian hospitals in the area so you could function as a trauma center, in essence, is very similar to what we do at Brooke Army Medical Center today. Is amazing. You and your wife, Haifa, were married in 1970. The two of you spent a year in England. You earned a degree of Master of Orthopedics at Liverpool University. You returned to your country again, where you were assigned to Al Rashid Military Hospital in Baghdad, which is a large academic military medical center, not unlike Walter Reed, it sounds like. Tell us about your time at Al Rashid in the 1970s, and again, your work to reorganize a hospital and modernize its equipment and its processes.
Yes, when I came back from Liverpool, I joined my colleagues in Rashid Military Hospital. The Department of Orthopedic was part of a general surgery when I came back to Baghdad. And I found it is absurd that we have to have our own orthopedic department and trauma. I worked with my colleague named Mudhafar Habboush and succeeded to withdraw from general surgery and have our own Department of Orthopedic and Trauma. Actually, the surgeon who was in charge of this department was very clever, named Walid Al-Khayal, and this person used to do thoracotomies, to do laparotomies, do internal fixations of fracture. Even I assisted him one day with doing a valvotomy on the heart. So he was so brilliant. He does everything. But this is not, the right thing to do. You have to do some subspecialization to cope with each specialty properly. So I established a department on our own, and the country at that time was doing very well money-wise. The budget was very good. So I ordered so much equipment, and I had about 20 beds for patients. I have 2 theaters, and I ordered special X-ray machines, endoscopic towers, implants, and equipment very ready to serve in peace. Perfect. Can cope with any problems in peacetime. But as we will talk later on, when the war started in 1980, it was not quite efficient for this job.
Sir, thank you for that. But I admire the fact that you prepared your hospital to the best of your ability during time of peace and prosperity, which is what we all should do. So just to orient everybody, Saddam Hussein came to power in Iraq in 1979, and you made reference to the bloody Iraq conflict started in 1980 and lasted for 8 years. Tell us about your experience as a physician and senior leader in the Iraqi military medicine during this time.
During 1970, we used to receive some casualties from the border between Iraq and Iran. Minor conflicts which always pass away within 1 or 2 days. In September, I remember, 1980, we were called to go to the hospital for an emergency. And we thought this is one of the conflicts which will last only a few days. But it didn't. The conflict lasted weeks, months, and even years, as you know. So we have to cope with escalating casualties every day. So much so that our department was not enough to cope. I used to take some other beds from other specialties to cover the need of casualties. But even though this didn't cover, and even that at that time, I asked the Minister of Health to help, and we had a number of beds in civilian hospitals to help us in this matter. At that time, I was in charge of all the problems in the department, and one day I was called by the director of medical military services saying I had a very strict letter from higher authorities saying, quote, there are a great number of amputee in the border. We want to know the reason, quote. And he was clever because you know the phrase, if you are clever, pass it to the other. So he passed it to me. So I looked at the letter and then I said, I must go to the border and see what's going on. I went there for 3 days and I found 3 factors which are important in getting a great number of amputee. I came back and I raised a report saying, factor number 1, delay in evacuation. Factor number 2, inadequate qualified surgeons in the border. Factor number 3, I told them there is problem with the Thomas splint. I told them factor 1 and 2 you have to solve, but the Thomas splint I have to solve. As you know, the Thomas splint This consists of, it was invented by Hugh Owen Thomas in the First World War, and the problem is the ring of the Thomas splint. It was very successful in injuries around the knee and the leg, but it was very dangerous using it in injuries around the hip joint or the upper femur, upper thigh. So I found that delay in evacuation plus the ring pressing on the site of injury causes ischemia and impairment of blood supply. So I came back and say, well, okay, how I solve the problem of the Thomas splint? So I invented or I organized a special splint consists of plastic material which embraces the back of the pelvis, back of the thigh, and back of the leg, and at the end of which there is traction device. In front of this, there is Velcro fastening in front of the abdomen, lower abdomen, in front of the thigh, and in front of the leg. This will allow progressive swelling. It will allow very peaceful and good stability for the patient. And even if there is delay in evacuation, the patient will be in good shape. So this was manufactured in Sweden by the factory named LIC, and it did very well in saving limbs from amputation. Now, the war escalated and many injuries we received, and the bed situation became very difficult. And the only way to get more beds is to discharge patients early. As you know, we receive 60% of the casualties. The extremities take the great share in the injuries. Other injuries, head, chest, and abdomen, are lethal, and usually a lesser percentage arrive safe to the hospital. So I found a way to discharge patients early and then be treated as an outpatient. And the only way is to apply external fixation. Any hospital qualified in the world don't have a number of external fixation enough or cope with such a number of casualties. So what I did is that I used a device consisting of pins, which were manufactured at a military facility back home, and then I used a tubing, which is a conduit used by electricians and have different calibers. And then I used polymethacrylate solution, which when it sets, it becomes very solid as an external frame. And this very easy to apply, very light in weight, and very cheap. So we did with my colleagues, all my colleagues use this way, and then we managed to have patients discharged very early and then to be treated as outpatient. After the war escalated and passed in the mid-80s, now there comes the role of reconstructive surgery. Reconstructive surgery needs cooperation between the orthopedic surgeon and plastic surgeon and sometimes vascular surgeon. So the apparatus we have was the Elizarov apparatus, and this was, of course, invented by Elizarov, and the idea of applying it was by Elizarov, who was a Russian, but it was, number one, a bit expensive, number two, very difficult to assemble, and number three, we have a very short number of these apparatus. So I have to design my own apparatus in the regional facility in the military. And this consisted of a standard frame that can be applied to all patients. It does bone lengthening, bone carrying, and bone compressing. So I did very well with this apparatus, and the regional facility manufactured quite a good number of them and were used by my colleagues as well. And I was very happy that I managed to save limbs using this apparatus. And I remember when I visited the civilian hospital to visit casualties there, military casualties, one of the officers, a patient, said, "Sir, I want to be transferred to your hospital because they want to amputate my limb, and then I will lose all my rights if I do it in a civilian hospital." So I took him to a military hospital under my care, and I found that his limb is viable, but in his card there is a committee that have signed for amputation, about 4 doctors, different specialties. So I told him, if you can cope with me for 1 year, I can do something for you. I applied my apparatus. I did bone carrying. I started bone carrying, and then I asked the plastic surgeon to cover the wound. And at the end of 1 year, I got his limb almost normal. Then he asked me to be transferred to a special committee to get his rights, because at that time they used to give them money, they gave them a disabled car, or they gave them a piece of land. He went to the committee and he came back. He said, "They gave me nothing." I said, "Why?" He said, your limb is so good, you don't deserve anything." So I was very happy that I did this for this patient. I have another lady, the daughter of one of the VIPs in the military, and she had infection in her knee when she was a baby, and ended with disabled, very short lower limb. She was used an ugly prosthesis, and the discrepancy was about 17 centimeters. So her father said, "Can you help?" I said, "Yes, of course I can. I can lengthen her limb." But I told him the pros and cons of the problems of lengthening, so he agreed. I applied my apparatus for lengthening, and I succeeded to have her limb the same length as the other limb. She was married and she had 2 children. And this is another case I was very happy that I have applied. At the end of the war, or about the late 80s, I designed a special plate which was manufactured by Hammadica, United Kingdom, which consists of vitalium alloy, and the holes of the plate in the periphery, and it was so strong that I have applied it on patients with non-unions, clean non-unions. I don't need to do the apparatus for any compression or bone carrying, and I can apply bone graft at the same time. And this was very good and was named after my name, Habboush Bone Loss Plate. Later on, I found that I need some files. The files that the conventional files cannot approach some places in the bones, especially in the hip region. So I invented or designed a 3 curve files with 3 curvatures, and these were very useful. It was very useful to use, and was also manufactured by Hammadica, United Kingdom. At the end of the war, I was so happy that I gave excellent service to my patients. I loved my patients. They loved me. I salute them in the morning. They do the same for me. And my superior, especially the president, used to visit them, and he was very happy that everything was going very well.
Thank you for sharing that. I've heard it said that the only good thing that comes out of a war is that the medics get better, and your innovation, your ingenuity certainly led to improvements. The fact that you went to the border and saw what was going on and made changes based on your personal experience is spot on, and that's what we all should aspire to. So shortly after that, Iraq invaded Kuwait in August of 1990, leading to what we in the United States call the Gulf War or Desert Shield, Desert Storm. This conflict ended quickly with the coalition defeat of the Iraqi military. The 1990s was a tumultuous time in Iraq. You were now a major general, which is the highest rank of a military medicine officer in the Iraqi military. Saddam Hussein was still in power during that time. Tell us what it was like to serve as an Iraqi senior military medical leader during this time.
Actually, I was not very happy during that time about the invasion and the problem our military have to withstand and coming back home. Some events happened during this time. The first event, I thought I have finished my military service for my age, and I thought I will apply for resignation, which I did on 1993. I resigned, and my paper of resignation went to the president, and he rejected forcefully, and he said, no, you should stay. So I stayed until 2003. The other event that happened during the 90s, that the brother of Saddam Hussein named Wadban was shot by Uday, and his limb was severely damaged. And I was asked about 4 o'clock in the morning to go and see him in Ben Sina Hospital, which is a special hospital for the palace. A senior neurosurgeon joined me named Saad Al-Witri, and both of us saw the Wadban, his name, and the neurosurgeon decided amputation. I said to him, let us try to save his limb. So we did. I worked from 4 o'clock in the morning until 11, and I managed to save his limb and put the bones together and put an external fixation device across his knee. And when we finished at 11 o'clock, the president was waiting downstairs. So he said, how's things going on? I said, everything okay. And the only problem is the nerve, which needs some nerve grafts at a later date. This is a problem which, again, it was a great problem to manage in the 90s. The other problem in 1996 is Uday's eldest son was shot by I don't know whom on the street. And I was called at about 7 o'clock in the evening, and he was shocked, and his limb was very damaged, mutilated. Again, we were a team of doctors. Somebody did laparotomy, some did thoracotomy. I did with my orthopedic colleague named Sinan. We did some reconstructive procedure on his limb, and we saved his limb. This is during the 90s, which I have faced so many problems, which I managed to cope with.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And just for our audience understanding, please clarify. I think when you made reference to the president of Iraq at that time was Saddam Hussein. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, correct. Yes.
Yeah,
correct.
and the son was Uday. I think his
eldest son.
His eldest son. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. So,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, you left Iraq in August of 2003. You were 69 years old at the time. You then lived in Jordan for 10 years and continued to serve as an orthopedic surgeon. and then moved to California to be near your family. As we start to wind down here and before we close, I know you're a very devoted husband and father. Would you please tell us a little bit about your family and how important your family is to you?
Yes, during when I left to Jordan, my family was behind at home, and my wife, she was a very devoted mother to her children and to me. She faced some attack by some militia, which forced her to join me in Jordan, and we stayed about 10 years. I practiced orthopedics in a private hospital. I had a special permit to do so. And I used to go back and forth to the States to visit my daughters. And at the end, after 10 years, I came to San Diego and visited my youngest daughter, Rana. And she got hold of me and she didn't let me go back to Jordan anymore. And that's how I was very grateful to the government of the United States to give me protection, to give me residence, and eventually to give me citizenship.
Sir, thank you for that. And you make me proud to also be a citizen of the United States. Your story of service, sacrifice, and honor is truly remarkable, something that we all can learn from, and the times you served and the way you served your patients in your country, I think is a lesson for all of us. You've truly lived a remarkable life and continue to do so, and you're with your family today, and today is your birthday. Again, happy birthday to you, and thank you for being on War Docs.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You can read Dr. Habboush's bio and see remarkable pictures of his life on our website, wardocspodcast.com. Thank you all for joining us on War Docs. May God bless.
Thank you for listening to War Docs. We sure hope you enjoyed it. War Docs is a nonprofit organization supported by donations from listeners like you. Please follow and subscribe to our show on whatever platform you consume your podcasts, and rate and review this episode, and share the show with your contacts on social media. Find out more information about our show, our guests, and how to become a member of Team War Docs on wardocspodcast.com. Thank you for your support. If you like war stories and medical drama, War Docs has you covered. Spread the word.